I upload daily NBA content on this channel, so if that is something that interests you, then subscribe. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference. Also, real quick, episode 12 of my NBA Sixers series is out now. Being that the topic of this video involves the Sixers, I should mention that series is about me rebuilding around Ben Simmons as the focal point. So if that is something that interests you, then go check out that channel, those videos, and yeah, you get it. Today's topic is the James Harden trade, and in particular, I'm focusing on the James Harden for Ben Simmons rumors. As you can tell from the title, I believe that James Harden for Ben Simmons is the clear-cut trade that would be stupid if both parties did not agree to, and I've expressed that as saying that the trade is practically inevitable. So let me just first talk about some of the gripes that both sides of this potential trade have had. So starting with the Philadelphia 76ers, there is the argument that Ben Simmons is 25 years old and he is no worse than like the 20th best player in the NBA. And if built around properly, he could end up being like borderline top 10. And meanwhile, while James Harden is obviously a top 10 player already, he is like 32 and he's on a 2-year contract. Ben Simmons is on the Sixers for the long term. I think he has like 4 years plus left on his contract. So the argument there is that the Sixers would be trading away 10 years of Ben Simmons for 2 to maybe like 5 years of James Harden if James Harden agrees to an extension. And I do believe that is a valid argument. Another defense that people have said for why this trade won't happen for the Sixers is the fact that Daryl Morey said that he's not going to trade Ben Simmons, but like, I can't tell you how little that actually means, and I'm very tired of people acting like statements like that actually mean something, because teams and owners and general managers say that they're not going to trade their star player all the time, and then they do. Basically, the only time a front office, like a general manager, is asked if they're going to trade someone, pretty much the only time they're going to say yes is if that player has publicly asked for a trade. And it's for that reason that I think it's quite ridiculous if people are like, well, obviously Daryl Morey's not going to trade Ben Simmons because he said he's not going to trade Ben Simmons, when he quite literally did the same thing with Chris Paul. So it doesn't mean anything, like at all, that Daryl Morey says that he's not going to trade Ben Simmons, because from the perspective of Daryl Morey, he doesn't want to piss off Ben Simmons by putting him in trade rumors to the point where Ben asks out. And he also doesn't want to make it clear that he's just okay giving away Ben Simmons for James Harden with like no hesitation, because then he loses negotiation power with the Rockets. Every side needs to act like they are going to ask for more than they can actually get. That's how negotiation works. You upsell what you actually want so you can bring them down to what you actually want. And that's what I believe Daryl Morey is doing by acting hesitant to trade Ben Simmons, and the fact that he's trying to preserve the relationship with Ben Simmons if he cannot trade for James Harden. So I don't think that is like a reason why this trade is not going to happen. From the Rockets' perspective, there's reports of them wanting like 3 first-round picks and young players, and I do understand why they want the picks, because they don't have picks of their own. But if they're doing a Harden for Ben Simmons trade, those first-round picks are really not going to be all that valuable, because they're going to be late first-round picks every year. And Ben Simmons alone is worth more than practically any other trade package that you're reasonably getting for James Harden. Ben Simmons and like Matisse Thybulle and maybe one first-round pick is 5 times the offer that literally anybody else in the league has been potentially offering the Sixers, or offering the Rockets rather. And unless there is some other move that I'm just not seeing coming out of left field, I haven't seen a single deal proposed for James Harden that is anywhere close to as good as what Ben Simmons for even James Harden straight up would likely be. Like, I would rather have Ben Simmons than Tyler Hero and some contracts and like 3 first-round picks. I would genuinely rather have Ben Simmons than that, because I believe that Ben Simmons can be a franchise player. But now let's talk about what the not the concerns, because I already kind of addressed that, like what the reason why you would really not make this trade, the hypotheticals for why you wouldn't. There really is none for the Houston Rockets, because the fact of the matter is Ben Simmons is the best player you're getting out of a James Harden trade. The only reason why they don't make this trade right now is they want to kind of play it slow and make sure they can get the absolute maximum amount of assets that they can for him. And that makes perfect sense. They're playing it the same way that the New Orleans Pelicans did, where they're just going to wait and see what they can get rather than rushing out a deal. And they're perfectly within reason to do that, perfectly within their right to do that. And I think that's the right decision. But for the Philadelphia 76ers, there are three routes for why you wouldn't do this James Harden trade. There's two things that you would have to believe, and if you don't believe either of those two things, then there's zero reason why you don't do this James Harden trade. You'd have to believe that either A, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid built around perfectly has a higher ceiling than James Harden and Joel Embiid built around perfectly. And you'd also have to believe that that team could win multiple championships to just like one that you could possibly win with James Harden and Joel Embiid. So you would have to be confident, like really confident, that Ben Simmons can work next to Joel Embiid at a championship level. That's what you would have to believe. Or you would have to believe that Ben Simmons is such a valuable player that the Sixers should never feel okay getting rid of him. And really, if you don't believe that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid can work together, but you do think Ben Simmons is that level of player, then you should believe that the Sixers should trade Joel Embiid. So the two perspectives that you can have that makes you not do a James Harden trade as a Sixers fan or as the Sixers like general manager would be, we can build around Ben Simmons and Embiid and win a championship that way, or Ben Simmons is so good that we should trade Joel Embiid and not try and make that duo work if those two don't work. I guess it could also be a third one where it's a mix of the both, where you believe Ben Simmons is that good and you think he can work with Joel Embiid, so that's why I said there's kind of a third one. But that's pretty much it. If you don't believe the ceiling of those two is championship duo, then you trade Ben Simmons. Or if you believe that Ben Simmons' ceiling is too high, but they don't work together, then you trade Joel Embiid. And I personally do not really confidently believe in either of those. Now, I've heard the argument that the Sixers should trade Joel Embiid for James Harden and let Ben Simmons be the guy next to James. And personally, I believe that A, the ceiling of that team is a little bit lower, even if built around flawlessly. And B, the Rockets have no reason to trade for Joel Embiid at his age with his injury issues and all of that. Joel Embiid is just not as valuable of a trade asset as Ben Simmons because of age and health. So for that reason, I don't think that's reasonable to expect unless it was a 3-team deal where some team was trading for Joel Embiid and then the team trading for Joel Embiid sent a bunch of stuff to the Rockets. And don't think that happens. And really, I would rather just have the duo of Harden and Embiid rather than the duo of Ben Simmons and Harden. But I understand the other perspective of that as well. But I don't believe that Joel Embiid for James Harden is really a possibility. And then if I can bring this back to the Houston Rockets, I've seen so many people acting like Ben Simmons is not like good enough to be traded for James Harden. It's like, even if like straight up, yeah, James Harden's obviously the better player, with Ben's youth, that makes it the difference not as significant, to the point where there are people hesitant on trading Ben Simmons for him for good reason. And then also, it's not like the Rockets are going to get a better deal. Like the next best offer on the table for the Rockets is going to be Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, and then Kelly Olynyk's contract, and I think maybe Andre Iguodala's contract as well. Neither really players that are going to move the needle at all, just contracts to make the salaries work. And then like 3 first-round picks from the Miami Heat, where if you trade James Harden to the Miami Heat and he stays there for the next 3 years, 3 first-round picks is not really going to be jack shit from them. Like, that's the best deal they're getting that's not involving Ben Simmons. And I think that should be taken into account here, because you're not going to get a perfect trade package back for a superstar caliber player of the level of James Harden. And because of that, you got to be okay taking a trade where you're getting someone that already, even without like not being able to get the best back for him, I think that's a pretty damn solid deal, even if you're getting a little bit less value back. And how many rebuilds, especially rebuilds where teams, like the team does not have their future first-round picks like the Rockets don't, how many of them get to start off with a guy who could be a potential franchise player? Like, the Rockets are primed in a position where they don't have their future and first round picks, so they need to like get their franchise like future lead option, or at least second option, maybe not for a championship level team, but for a good level team. You have the option to get that right now, and no other team in the league can offer that. Now, I heard a Funky Diabetic make a strong point, which was that if Ben Simmons is on the table, then why has the deal not gone through right now? Well, I think the Rockets are like trying to get every little last drop out of James Harden that they can, and as I said, they're right to do that. And I think if they express hesitance to the Philadelphia 76ers in this trade, I think that Daryl Morey will be like, I think they're trying to push Daryl Morey to be like willing to add a little bit more just to finally make the trade happen, like some impatience type shit right there. And I do believe like they're both doing smoke and mirrors, playing some mind games right now. I think it is, as the title says, even though we might not see this trade for a while, I can't imagine a James Harden trade that does not end up being for Ben Simmons. The only way that it does not happen is if Daryl Morey strongly believes in Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid as a duo. And he would have to believe in that very strongly to be turning down the potential duo of James Harden and Joel Embiid. Because I believe that duo has like championship level ceiling, and I think they can win a championship as that level. Now, I would even pick them if everything goes properly. I think I'd pick them as the best team in the Eastern Conference. And for that reason, I think you make this deal. One other reason why you do this is if you go down 3 years down the line, and as it turns out, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid really do not work, and you finally just draw on that conclusion, and you didn't trade for James Harden 3 years previous, Joel Embiid's going to be a lot older, Ben Simmons is going to be a lot older, and you're going to realize, oh shit, I could have traded for James Harden and actually won a championship. Now we're in too deep, and we can't get anything at that level to split these two up, and I shouldn't have been trying to wait this one out. And for that reason, and for all the reasons I listed above, there's not a better trade package for the Rockets. The Sixers get an opportunity to really build a championship team, and the only reason you don't do it is if you believe in Embiid and Simmons at that level. So I do not believe that any trade for James Harden goes down that does not involve Ben Simmons. Of course, this video has a high chance of aging poorly because it's definitely well possible that this trade does not happen. But to me, at the very least, this seems like the clear-cut best option for every team involved. It's just a matter of if those teams realize that or not. So, to me, Ben Simmons for James Harden is inevitable. Also, I should say that Ben Simmons and like what the Rockets have right now is not actually a bad team at all. They could probably be a borderline playoff team if everything went properly. But outside of that, again, go check out that Sixer series. Ironically, we are talking about Ben Simmons being built around in this video, and that's what I'm doing over in my Sixer series. So if you're new to that series, haven't watched it yet, and you like hypothesizing about what Ben Simmons built around properly would look like, that's what I'm doing in that series, so go check it out. Episode 12 is going over the end of Season 2. But yeah, that's the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.